Welcome everybody. Here's the update. Saul Klein, John Reilly, Tristan. Thanks for jumping in again. It's a crazy update every 2 weeks, and I know I say this repeatedly, guys, but I feel like we're gonna run out of news. That's crazy, but it it doesn't run out.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I know what we're gonna get into, but can one of you give us an update as to how we got here? So, like, it's Zillow versus Compass, right? But I need to know how did we get here in the last year-ish?
Yeah, so it's Zillow versus Compass. It's Compass versus Northwest MLS. It's Zillow versus MRED. It's Sitzer Burnett. It's Gibson. It's Batten and Batten 2. It's Armstrong.
Batten two.
Batten 2, right? So in the last and it's accelerated in the last year is what I would say. All of this has been in the works for probably 6, 7 years, and then even beyond that. And so what's becoming visible to us, what's manifesting now, are all of these things that have happened over the last 25 years. And it kind of began. So in the last year, it's just been acceleration of litigation, an acceleration of litigation, and an acceleration in innovation and technology, right? I mean, that's what's happened in the last year.
Yep.
But if you go back, um, maybe more than 25 years to the beginning of IDX and VOW. So VOW goes back to the e-realty lawsuit and against Austin, and the Department of Justice and NAR settlement, which was 2008, but they started dealing with this probably in 2004, and then go back to IDX, which was probably broker reciprocity, 98, 99. But so here's what happened. So here's the way it was. I say that was then, this is now. That was Mike Barnett's favorite expression, huh, John? Remember? That was then, this is now. And so listings are a marketing asset. And that's a key thing to keep in mind. A listing is a marketing asset. And when I sold real estate, people would take listings. There was no World Wide Web at the time. And you take
Okay.
a listing and you would put a sign on the property, and then people would drive by the sign and they would call you. Now, when somebody calls you off of that sign, that's a
You
lead.
remember that?
And
Yep,
so if you
yep.
sold real estate, you knew if you could get a listing, you'd put a sign on the property, people would call you. Those were leads. You didn't necessarily sell them that property, you would sell them something else. I remember realtors taking listings, overpriced listings on busy streets, on properties they knew they would never sell, but their sign would be up and people
I
would
remember
call,
that.
and they would, if you're a good salesperson, right, that was a lead. And so a listing is a marketing asset. And also, you would run, back in those days, we had what were called classified ads. And an
Mm.
interesting story about the newspaper is the newspaper actually was free a long time ago because they made money selling ads. And then,
Dude,
huh?
just like Craigslist. You remember Craigslist?
Yeah,
Free.
for sure.
Free.
Yep. Yep. So they made money selling ads, particular certain types of ads, but ads were content. And so if you had a listing, if you're a broker and you had 20 listings, you didn't run an ad on every listing. You might have run an ad on the ones that you thought people would respond to, and then your up desk, because people would read the classified ads, they'd circle the ones they're interested in, they would call, and most often you didn't. If you were on the up desk, you took the call. That call was the lead, and you didn't sell that lead, typically that property, but you had all of your office list, all the listings of your office in a 3-ring binder in front of you, and you'd figure out, oh, that's not a property, that property won't work for you, but I got others. Let me tell you about this property. Let me tell you about this property. So the listing brought leads. The listing is a marketing asset. A listing brought leads. But then when we decided to first put our listings online, the first place we really did it in a major way was realtor.com. And back then we were saying, be careful. Don't put them in a lot of places. Only put them in one place. Because if you put them in a lot of places, you're going to find entities that are not in alignment with what you are in alignment with as somebody who lists and sells real estate, and they might not want to take the industry in the direction you want to take it. Well, people didn't listen to that, and not only did they go from realtor.com, they went everywhere. And at that point, we said distribution trumps destination, get it out there everywhere. And then we even allowed other brokers to put our listings on their site. That was IDX. And what that was like, letting other brokers put their for sale sign on my listing. And when we decided we were going to do that, basically we turned over leads to the internet and to the entities that advertised on the internet. So when we started giving our listings to the big portals, before they were big portals, when they were portals, what we did is we said to the portals, here's the listing, advertise it for us. And of course, then what happens is the consumer contacted them and they then sold the
Mhm.
listings back to the listing agents and back to the agents. So we've been complaining as an industry about these portals selling leads back to us, our leads, we call them, right? Selling our leads back to us. But the fact is, we gave them the content so that they could go ahead and do this. And well, now people have started to, now I'm back up to present day. People have started to recognize what we knew years ago, and that is a listing's a marketing asset. And some brokers are saying, I don't want to give control to these big portals. Heck, they're charging me 30, 40% of the commission that I earn and to get my lead back. And my lead's what's drawing people to their site. And so certain people are pushing back, and now you've got these giants. You've got a giant portal in Zillow, and you have a giant brokerage in Compass, and they're at odds with one another. And
Okay.
so what we now have is litigation. And this was the case that was filed on May 12th, where Zillow is suing um, Compass and MRED, which is the MLS in Chicago. Now, the diagram you just put up, I've been working on iterations of this diagram for the past 30 days probably, and it just grows every day.
Yeah.
And what I try to do here is give people a 50,000, the view of the industry from 50,000 feet. Because there are so
Yep.
many pieces, it's hard to see the pieces. And that's what this diagram hopefully does. It puts it into perspective where you have those issues that are the industry is dealing with, the litigation, the regulation, the
Mm.
innovation, the data. Um, all of these pieces come together to give us this kind of like thin ice that we're walking on now as an
Okay.
industry.
So now Zillow versus Compass and MRED, which by the way, we talked about, I don't know, 3 months ago when it was starting to happen, because there was notice, right? We got notice. Our brokerage is in Chicago. Our broker said, "Hey, heads up, this could get ugly. You need to figure out a solution for Zillow because our clients will be complaining." So we went to Zillow directly. Our listings can syndicate to Zillow, but all the other brokerages that didn't do it, dude, that's a big problem. So
Well, so yeah,
yes,
it goes back to it really kind of revolves around CCP, doesn't it?
yes,
Cooperation kind of revolves around this idea of clear cooperation and putting your listing on the internet within a certain period of time based
that's
on your
funny.
MLS rules.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's funny.
actually, Zillow came out and said, if you don't put your listings in the MLS within the MLS rules, that period of time, usually 1 or 2 business days, then we're going to ban it from Zillow for the life of the listing. That's their ZLAS program.
Yep, yep.
And Compass, they had a program where they wanted to take exclusive listings, and before Zillow sued Compass sued Zillow. Remember, that was kind of
Yeah,
initially. what
And
happened.
that was thrown out.
And that then Compass released, what's the word, John? They decided to I don't remember if it was with prejudice or without prejudice, but they decided they weren't going to sue.
It was with prejudice.
Was it with prejudice? Yeah.
Yeah.
So something happened where Compass said, okay, Zillow now, because they're doing this, they agree with us that you can have private list. Oh, Zillow created their own idea, like of a private listing network within Zillow itself, Zillow Preview.
Yep.
And so Compass backed off, but then Compass put the pressure on, or went to and had a conversation with MRED, which has had a private listing network inside the M. So it was what ZLAS
Well,
says.
what we described this when it was happening, which was, once Compass saw that they weren't going to beat Zillow in court, right? They're like, you know what? Let's go a different route. Now we're seeing the route that they're actually going to take, which is where you clearly see what they're doing. And this is why I have an issue with this, guys, because I'm looking at this, well, not this one. Hold on. This is the one I can't zoom into. The bigger one. I think it is this one. Perfect. So if I'm looking at now this, right? So Compass backs out and says, you know what? We won. It's okay. Zillow said we won. It's okay, right? They both claimed that they won, even though it didn't go all the way. Compass then says, we've got a plan. This is internal. This is me reading through. This is me reading between the lines, guys. Okay. So help me out. Compass is like, yeah, we got a better plan. We're going to go directly to the MLSs and start demanding from Zillow, because this is now what they're doing, that they work the way we want them to work, or we're just not going to syndicate the listings to them anymore. And so that's what we're seeing with MRED. And then now some other MLSs are following. But what do you guys think of that? Because I feel like it's the mafia, like the mafia versus the mafia.
Well, it is the titans of the industry going against one another. So it's like
Yeah.
duel of the titans, really. No doubt about that. So Zillow created this rule that says you have to put it in the MLS within the rules of the MLS. And then what MRED had is they had a private listing network, and they've had it for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And so people in Chicago were used to putting in that surrounding area, they call it Chicagoland. People
Mm-hmm.
could put it in the MLS, but not allow it to be distributed. And Zillow, remember, they said you got to put it in the MLS, but at MRED you could put it in the MLS and people wouldn't have access to it. So what it was almost like what Compass was saying when they partnered up with MRED is it's in the MLS. Sorry, you can't see it, but it is
Mm-hmm.
following the rules of the MLS. And
Yeah.
it is
It's
in the
this
MLS.
MLS,
It's just
right?
in this
Private
different
listing network.
it's just in this different category. But the MLS has the data. It's in the MLS. It was entered into the MLS system. It just happens to be in an area that you can't see it. And so then Zillow has come back and said, well, and this is speculation. Zillow has said, but I have some evidence that this is the case. Zillow said, well, wait a minute. If it's not where we can see it, if we don't deem it's properly put in the MLS, we're going to ban it from Zillow.
Yeah.
And so Compass has come back and said, well, if you're going to do that, then we're going to tell the MLS to not send you all the listings from the MLS.
Yep.
And remember that Zillow is a broker. And so the reason Zillow has all these listings is they get the listings under the rule that says brokers can get the IDX feed or the VOW, the virtual office website feed. And
Yeah. Well,
so
the part that I think is the most challenging part, and you guys tell me otherwise, which you just said right here, which is MRED now got involved with Compass, and you said, well, they said together now, well, if you're not going to do it the way we want it, Zillow, you know what we're going to do? Well, we're not only going to tell them not to help you and work with you, we're going to tell them and them and them, and we're going to tell more MLSs not to work with you. And that to me starts looking like antitrust at that point.
Yeah, it might look like it, and it might be, but you and I'll never, you and me and John will never
It's
figure
not
it
my
out,
job.
right?
I mean, it looks like it, but I have no clue.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's going to be battle. They're going to battle over that.
Yeah.
That's really the premise here in the case.
Yeah.
Part of it, right, is that now if you look at those other MLSs, their rules are a little bit different. They're not all the
Okay.
same rules that MRED has. And remember that Robert Refkin of Compass was talking about a national MLS. Well, if not, and we know national MLS doesn't make sense to us because real estate's local. But what if you could get MLSs across the country to share all the data together?
It looks like it's happening, man. It looks
At
like it's
least with
starting to
some of the
happen.
big MLSs, it looks like it. But still, I'm not sure how they're going to get the rest of the listings um, in different marketplaces, and we'll see how it all shakes out. And I can tell you that Zillow's litigation against an MLS is um, really a warning to other MLSs, I think. Right? Don't mess with us or we'll file a lawsuit against you. And MLSs really don't have much of an appetite, particularly smaller ones, for antitrust litigation. So I think people are going to walk more carefully. But here's the other thing. If you cut the feed off to Zillow, you can bet that agents, members of the MLS, are going to be calling the MLS because their sellers want their listings on Zillow.
Yeah, and look, and I'm going to go to John on this question because this is how I see it. I'm a real estate agent, right? And I want my buyers to have the most, have all the listings possible at their fingertips. And I just want it to be as even as possible, kind of like the world that we've lived in already, which we've proven works. So when I look at this, I see a bad side. Dude, I see the Jedis and I see the Sith Lords. And it doesn't mean that there's no like, well, maybe that Jedi's not the greatest, right? But in this case, like for me, it is clear. And for other people, they can have their own judgments and opinions. But in this case, if we let Compass jump in and do what they're going to do, this is stage one. Like for me, they're the Sith Lords, they're the dark side. For me, and it's crazy for me to say this, right? But Zillow on this case, for now, I feel like they're the good guys. Like, and I know they're both doing it for selfish reasons, but selfish reason on Zillow's side allows us to give the consumer what they've always wanted. The other side, look at this mess, man. Look at this crazy mess we're in. This is crazy. John, where do we go from here, man?
Well, I think Saul mentioned a magic word, which is control. Who has control over the data? I think ultimately that's what the wars are going to be about. And as I was sifting through all of these cases, I ran across a phrase that I hadn't heard before, which was interesting.
What's
And
that?
it was called the uh, uh, oh, what was that name again? The uh, deals with who owns the listing, who owns the data itself, and the control over that data. And they called it the digital moat, MOAT. And
Oh, got it, got it,
and
got it.
I happened to see that there was a recent investor presentation by Zillow to major investors in which they talked about the strength of Zillow is the intelligence that they have behind this data. And
Mm-hmm.
they have what they say is the best data moat, and which, if you look at all of the products that they have, they're accumulating a massive amount of consumer behavior, agent behavior, and they're then setting that into their system, which they call it's a proprietary system. It's not
Yeah.
public. They're not releasing it publicly. So it
No.
doesn't have the privacy violations of personalized information, but it all stemmed around the intelligence of what they can do with the data. And they gave a knockout presentation to their investors of how dominant they are with having the best data moat available. And that's, the intelligence behind it.
Yeah.
So that's an area that I'm going to be following. I think the Portal War lawsuits, the Compass versus Zillow and Vice, they're going to go on endlessly, and
Yeah.
I think they'll probably wind up figuring one way or another to settle it themselves. It won't be a magical answer that comes out of it. Although one thing that has come out of some of the cases is more of an inclination where you remember Zillow for long said, we're not a brokerage.
Yeah, I
Well,
remember that. They
yeah,
lied.
well, I think they've made several admissions in the latest cases where they're saying, oh yeah, we are a brokerage. We are a major brokerage and we're competing as such. Well, that puts
Yeah.
them in a different category on the antitrust suits because the antitrust they're going to say, hey, all's fair if you're in competition with a competitor in the business. You're not
Yeah.
depriving somebody getting into the business. you're you're just dealing with a competitor.
They also
Interesting.
said MRED's a competitor. So they said they're a
Yeah.
competitor to MLSs. But I want to throw something out here because we've over the last couple of years, a lot of people have acquiesced to the idea that an MLS or MLS data is a public utility. It's not a public utility. I don't care. Now, I'm just being dramatic here, but I really don't care whether a consumer gets to see all the data. An MLS is a broker
Yeah.
to broker network. It was created for listings, not for buyers to see everything. It was for brokers to share listings. So, this idea that the MLS has to provide its data for everybody to see, I don't buy that. It's not a public utility. And if it is a public utility, then we're going to see the DOJ and the FTC involved at
Yeah.
some point regulating it because they regulate public utilities. So I don't believe that the MLS is a public utility and that everything that goes in the MLS has to be made public to people. I think if you want to know what's on the market, you call a real estate agent, you talk to them about it, and they'll certain things they have access to and certain things it's always been that way, where
Well,
they
yeah,
have access to
I have
some
a,
data and not to the other.
I want to add something here on John on your data play because um, when Follow Up Boss was acquired, right? So I am contracted by Follow Up Boss, so I'm contracted by Zillow, right? So I help them in their marketing, so we get to see all their back end stuff, and we're beta testing. A few of us are beta testing something on Follow Up Boss, and I can talk about it, so I'm going to show it to you so you can see the data play, okay? So Follow Up Boss, this is the back end of Follow Up Boss. It's a client. His name is George Bandula. Every single client in Follow Up Boss, we can send a, there's a little button that says, not on this one because we already connected them. We can send a button that says invite the client so they can work with you through Zillow. That means we can see everything they do on Zillow on the back end of Follow Up Boss. This one accepted. So you see how it changed to Zillow? So now on the right hand side, we know everything they're doing inside of Zillow. And Zillow's going to let me know. Their AI says, hey, this person's getting hotter. Oh, wait, check this person out, right? So in essence, we're using the Zillow IDX for whatever they do, and all of the prompts are coming directly into Follow Up Boss. So the data play, hands down, the best. It's the biggest IDX in the whole nation, if you want to say like that, right? But data, yeah, hands down. I think, and I think Compass is doing the exact same thing though with their people. And I think the challenge is that all of these MLSs, they're playing out of their league. Like Compass and Zillow, like they're playing a whole different game. And now Compass is just trying to bring in all these MLSs to make them feel like they actually matter when they don't care about them. All they want is the same thing they wanted in step one. We want to be able to do whatever we want with the listings before they go into the MLS. That's their end play at the end too, when they beat Zillow, if they beat Zillow.
Well, so it's interesting because you covered a couple of interesting points there. First of all, the MLS is still the very best at getting the very best information in the most timely way. So I don't care
Yeah,
whether you're Zillow or any other portal or IDX solution, or AI. It all depends on the listing information, which
on the
comes from the
data.
MLS, right? So the MLSs
Agreed.
still have a play because they got the fuel that will
They
drive
do.
these other business opportunities. Now, what Follow Up Boss and Zillow are doing is they're using the consumer behavioral data to help you as an agent because your buyers don't always tell you the truth. They don't always tell you everything they know. But when they are going from one thing to another and looking at different things, they're telling the system, which is telling you. So you might have a buyer that says, I'm only interested in properties up to 500,000, but then they're out there viewing $1 million properties consistently.
Yep.
That just told you something as an agent. You know, you said you wanted $500,000 property. I found $1 million property you might be interested in. Would you like to see it? So that kind of consumer behavioral data, that intelligence is critical to a real estate salesperson, right? To be able to anticipate the needs, the wants of the people when they're in that looking phase because they're telling
Yes.
you things. Now, Realtor.com is doing the same kind of thing. And Compass is doing it, and they're using the AI, they're tracking the consumer behavioral data and feeding it back to the salesperson so you have a better idea as to when they're going and looking, what time of day they look, what are they looking at? Are they spending their times looking at properties with nice kitchens? Are they only looking at properties with swimming pools? And this gives you insight into the mind of the consumer and it'll allow you to better service that consumer. So these are things that all of these companies are doing. And again, that data is driven their innovation is driven by the data. Now, I'll just throw another thing because I think AI could upset the apple cart when it comes to portals. And
It
I think
can.
when you look at something like now, Google is now working with in a pilot phase with House Canary and Come Home. And so they get the IDX feed. And so how is that going to work if Google is successful in this pilot? And so now, no matter where the listing might appear, if the AI can go out and grab it, and if it's like natural language search, I'm looking for two-bedroom properties in San Diego. And the AI goes
Mhm.
out and grabs all those properties in San Diego. Why do I need to go to a portal anymore? And Zillow and Google has captured eyeballs. So they
Mhm.
are still, for a lot of consumers, Google is where they go. And so Google has been looking for a number of years. Back in 2005, I think, I was the chairman of the Business Information and Technology Forum at NAR for a year. And I had Rich Barton on my panel and a guy named Justin McCarthy from Google. And they
Mhm.
because Google was in the game trying to get in the game then they backed out, but they've come back in. And I think that that could be a disruptor to the portal model and
Yeah.
go beyond some of the things we're looking at. So you see, Compass wants to control the inventory. Google wants to, or Zillow wants to control the leads. And I think Google might want to control that entry point when people come in. And John talks about a data moat. You think about all the data Google has on
Mm.
everybody. I mean, Google's been reading Gmail email for the last 20 years. And so
Yeah.
they've got an amazing amount of information and data and money. And the real estate marketplace is a huge part of the economy. So we haven't heard a lot about that, but I think we're probably going to.
Dude, I think Google would be a direct competitor to Zillow and the portals. You're right. The challenge would still be Compass because as Google takes on Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, and everybody else, because at the end of the day, they're just a marketing portal. They need eyeballs, right? And they need people paying for those eyeballs, same way Zillow makes money and Facebook. where does that leave Compass? Like, what happened? Who takes on Compass? Because it looks like this isn't good news for me. Like, I don't like seeing MRED fold and WMLS fold, ML or whoever is folding. I call it folding because they're chickening out. They're like, you know what? Let's just team up with Compass. We can't beat them, so we have to join them. Explain it to me differently, or am I wrong?
Well, I think what they might be looking at is saying the future of data on the internet is not about us being in total control. We'll let the brokers decide.
Wait, isn't that
And
what happened with Zillow? Like, oh yeah, you know what? They're doing something good. Let's give them control over our data and maybe they can do something cool with it. That's how it happened with Zillow. Like now we're doing the same thing with Compass.
now, see, here's what I think happened with Zillow because I gave them the data,
Yeah, so go ahead, tell me.
right? Is we went to MLSs and we got the data, and Zillow was a brand new company, and Zillow said, "Would you give us that listing information we wanted?" And the MLS, nobody back then knew enough about data and data contracts and data rights management. And it seemed like a good place to advertise or to show properties off. And Realtor.com
Yeah,
was already doing it. And so that's how Zillow kind of snuck into the marketplace. And then Realtor.com was restricted by the contract that it had with NAR. And so it couldn't do some of the things that Zillow could do. And Realtor.com was the number one most visited real estate website in the world for 11 years.
I
And
remember
then
that.
it took Zillow a while to get to number one, and now Zillow's number one. But just like Zillow's number one, I think when we bring Google into the picture, we're kind of like leveling the playing field all over again. I heard today, I knew it would happen, that EXP did a deal with House Canary, and House Canary is the entity that's supplying, is the
Yeah,
website that's supplying to Google the place to go when people are looking for real estate. So
yeah,
it's going to
yeah.
keep getting more and more interesting, Tristan. I don't think we've seen
So,
the end of updates
oh
for a
no, dude, I think now for sure, yeah, looking back, which is crazy to see because we started doing this when shit hit the fan. But Sitzer Burnett, right? I call you up and I'm like, dude, I don't understand this stuff. Can you come in and teach me and then talk about it so I can learn? And then you brought in John, and then we've been teaching since before this went down, right? And
Yep.
then now looking back, dude, how long has it been? Looking back, seeing the ramification of this case on the industry, not on our commission, on the industry has been way different than I thought. I didn't think it would completely financially destroy these legacy companies and leave them up for sale so that a company like Compass could come in and pick them up and be like, save us. We can't make it anymore. Right? Remax, save us. We can't make it anymore. Keller Williams, we can't make it anymore. We need Stone Point. Like I really didn't think like that. So now where we're going, what do you guys think happens next? Like, what aren't we seeing? Because I see these five future scenarios. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't. We haven't seen the results of a couple major lawsuits yet. The people thought the Gibson case was done. So Sitzer Burnett was on the sell side if you
Hmm.
listed and sold a property, and then Gibson and then Batten are on the buy side. Same case pretty much, but on the buy side. So if the sellers paid too much commission based on the litigation and there was a settlement, what about the buyers? Do they have a case? And so that's still being litigated. And what
Got
effect
it.
might that have? And for me, sitting in an MLS office, I still see the most cost-effective way to get the best data to make all of these models work is to
Hmm.
have the MLS continue to work. And
I
so,
agree with you.
right, the MLSs can provide
Yeah.
this data, then it's going to be different business
But it,
models.
but if Compass's model, which takes us back to the Stone Age, if Compass's model picks up fragmentation in walled gardens, now that's only a temporary advantage to Compass because that means every brokerage would do that. And then we need to figure out what to do. And then it's like, hey guys, fast forward 10 years from now. Hey guys, I think we should all work together and show all of our listings. What do you guys think of doing that? And then all of a sudden that becomes like the innovation of going back to the 2000s. It's like, hey, this is where we were before. We were wrong. So I think this is this is where we're at eventually. What do you guys think?
Well, maybe, but maybe brokers will put their listings on their IDX sites. This is would be good news to IDX providers, right?
That'd be yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
true.
then a site like Google could just go out and find where before your listing would never get found because Zillow is where people
Well,
go.
I mean,
But
that's
maybe
what,
you're
to be fair, that's exactly what EXP just did, right? And CRMLS, right? They made a deal with House Canary and Google. So they're saying, hey, everybody, here it is. Here's all our stuff.
so what we did the same thing. We signed a 2 month um, pilot with House Canary. Same thing CRMLS
Perfect.
did. And why? Because House Canary is a through Come Home, they're a broker. And as a broker,
Hmm.
they're entitled to an IDX feed, right? They're entitled to an IDX feed. All brokers are entitled to an IDX feed. So when a broker comes to us for an IDX feed that's a member of our MLS, we'll give them the IDX feed. And the
Hmm.
only thing that's different in this model is they're using Google for the search component.
Got
And
it.
they're right. So um,
I
we'll
think that's
we'll
awesome, dude.
see,
I
right?
listen, I'm rooting for that because it's I'm for evening out that playing field, right? Because now we're not competing on hiding things and possibly creating another legal issue in the future. We're all competing on the same thing, right? Which is who can get us the most money for the home that I see and that that person sees. And now it becomes better for everybody. I put up the link for that for the Google real estate listings with House
Mm.
Canary. It didn't announce, well, I don't know that you've announced it yet for the San Diego MLS, but it doesn't announce it on that one. And
Yeah,
then
they might not announce it.
But
Um,
is it behind a paywall?
no, not that one. That one's not behind a
No.
paywall. You
Okay.
can click on it. And then, John, are you and Saul going to put up the great graphic that I was showing on an
this one,
article? Yeah, that one. Because
ledger paper.
I'd like, I'd love that. I'd love that on an article, John. That'd be great.
So actually,
Well, I
Tristan,
would.
I took this data and I did a white paper on it.
Oh,
It's
send it, dude, send it to me. I'll throw it out to everybody.
16 pages.
If you can
And
make it 15 pages, you have a
I
deal. I'm
probably
joking.
could go
I'm
in
joking.
and change the spacing.
I'm
I'll just
joking.
change the font.
That's crazy. Send it over. Wait,
I
Saul, when did
will.
you become John? What happened? When did you start writing books?
No more books.
Oh, good.
All right, John, anything in closing? Where do you think we're heading, dude?
Well, Saul mentioned Google search is going to be so much easier for buyers and sellers. But at the same time, out of Google, I think there's going to be privacy issues as to what kind of data, they would be releasing. Would they be able to release what the buyer's budget is, for example? But,
Mm,
private listings can have their own data for intelligence purpose, know what buyers' budgets were for rentals in the marketplace, and
hmm
I think they can prepare a much more robust intelligence behind the data. So I think
Yeah,
it's data ownership and what you can do with it is going to be the key thing. And a lot may come out of these buyer suits that are coming up.
I agree with that, guys. I agree with that. I like the five future scenarios. We got coexistence. That's not happening, even though you put most likely. Two, portal dominant future. Maybe. I kind of like the Google route. That's nice. Fragmentation and walled garden. I think a combination of these two guys is what we're seeing, right? I'd love to be here, but I feel like that time's passed for now, right? Until we figure out these lawsuits. And then regulatory reset. What does that mean, Saul, right here?
But so the FTC comes in or the DOJ comes in and says the MLS listing data for properties of public utility and must be regulated, and we're going to regulate it nationwide. And here's the rules.
Got it. I like that. My favorite one actually is number five. I didn't read that one, but this is my favorite one because usually when you're led through innovation, that means you're pushing forward with new ways that are usually, if they gain momentum, are usually good for the consumer, and that's why they've gained momentum. So I really like this one. But let's see, guys. I think this keeps us on our toes for the update.
Gives us
It
something
certainly
to
keeps me on my toes. I have no idea what's happening.
What keep me
Uh,
on my toes is to try to reduce Saul's 15 pages down to 2 pages for you,
yeah,
Tristan. That's
dude.
that's impossible, but I'll try.
You guys sent me so much stuff on Friday, I think it was. I was reading everything. I was like, holy crap, what is this? I can't keep up. Oh, that was fun. Thanks, guys.
Okay, good
Okay,
to see you,
see you guys.
Tristan.
Thanks,
Take
everybody.
care.
Bye-bye.